गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः हरि ओम आमा we are in Amrit Anubhav, chapter 7, OV number 188, and here we are seeing the principle of seer scene difference and substratum is explained through examples, and two examples we saw last time. The first one was just as when a wave has risen and also subsided, but the next wave has not yet arisen, at that point there is only water. This we talked about. And the second example was, or it is like when the sleep is over but we are not fully awake. And now in the third example, na na eka thauni uthi anyatra na hue paithi he game taisiya drushti dithi suta. Or it is like the vision which has been lifted from one object but has not yet gone to the other object. See, these are very, very subtle examples. We see where is our attention. Our attention is on the name and form. The wave has appeared. Where has it come out of? The water. Where is it gone back? Into water. Where has the next wave come out of? Water. So because we are addicted to names and forms, and when the first wave has died and the next wave has not come up, what is there? Are you calling it wave? When the first wave has died, there is nothing but water. When the next wave has not arisen, still there is water. So your attention is between the two appearance of the two waves. The same thing can be taken between the two thoughts also. So if that example is correctly understood, that the wave is nothing but water, and after the wave dies there is nothing but water. Similarly, the thought appears. Where does it come out of? Where does the thought come out of? Consciousness. And when the thought vanishes, what remains behind? Consciousness. When the crease comes out, where does it come out of? The cloth. When you iron and take the crease out, where does it go back to? Cloth. What remains behind? Cloth. See? Come in. We are looking for you because we heard you and then you were not there outside.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's gone. Just a moment.
Okay. But when we're interacting with ourselves, we think the thought is some outside entity which has entered into our mind. It has not entered come from somewhere else. Just like a crease has come out of is nothing but cloth, ornament is nothing but gold, wave is nothing but water. Similarly, thought is nothing but pure consciousness. Your attention is on the beginning and end of the thought. Therefore, the problem. So, how to come out of this problem? Go between the thoughts, go between the breaths, go between the waves. Then another example, what is a beautiful time of the day when you can naturally access it? Just when you are waking up. When you wake up, your mind has not become objectified yet, and you are available to yourself, access. So these are windows of opportunity which are presented to us naturally without our wanting, on a daily basis, on a moment to moment basis. But are we available? Because consciousness is plentifully available. Consciousness is plentifully available. Always. There has never been a time that it is not, the truth is not. Then why are we not realizing it? Because we are not available to it. How do we become available to it? These are the points where you can focus, you can be aware, and the revelation will happen. Or is it like the vision that has been lifted from one object but has not yet gone to the other object? The consciousness or the mind expressing through the eyes is vision. The mind goes out, it takes the form, one particular form into its womb, and a thought is formed called Louis. So you drop the form, you are doing this all the time. You drop this form to move to the next form. But before you have taken the next form and created a thought about it, what was in that interim? Your conscious space. So remain there. Or the vision has lifted from one object of knowledge, but it has not yet landed on another object of knowledge. The term drishti stands for all the sense organs. By the lakshana vritti, in the perception of an object, three aspects are involved: the object of knowledge, the mind taking the shape of the object in the form of thought of the object, and C, this thought bathing in the light of consciousness, thus resulting in the reflection of consciousness in this thought. These are the three stages how a knowledge is created, thought knowledge is created. The first one, there is an object which can be known. Second, your mind goes out and envelops that object and it appears as a thought in your mind. And third, the light of consciousness illuminates that knowledge that has taken place. Without that, knowledge cannot take place. Without the illumination, you will not be knowing it. Thus, every thought is an independent trio. The reflected consciousness or specific reflection is called Chidabhasa, which illumines not only the thought but also the contents of the thought, thus becoming the knower of the contents of thought. Thus, when the vision was on the first object, there was the trio wherein the Chidabhasa, the thought of the object of the mind, etc., wherewith reference to the object. Later, the vision is lifted from that object, meaning that object is dropped from the womb of thought, and a second object takes its place to form a new trio. This is such a high frequency process that the Chidabhasa, which is independent with reference to each thought, acquires an illusion of continuity like the Alata Chakra, the torch in fast circular motion. This pseudo continuity of the relative drashta is the illusion. This we have explained many times before. When we take a firecracker, fire sparkler, and rotate it, that fire sparkler can be at one place at any given time. But because of our fast continuous movement of that one stick in a circular motion, an seeming appearance of a circle of light appears. Is that circle of light real, or is it an illusion?
It's like a memory of the last thing.
Yeah, but it is there, you are seeing it. Because you are moving so fast, it seems to be there, but actually there is no circle. Exactly the same way. One thought is formed because of a marriage between the subject and the object. The, the I thought and the that thought. And that equation is over. Then the next equation. So I know Louis, then I know Radha, then I know the uncle, I know chair, I know camera, I know this. Every time I know I is the new I thought comes with the that thought and a thought is created. But this is happening at such a great speed that an imaginary continuity is taken to be real, and this the word I didn't know this word, alata chakra. Alata chakra is this imagined continuity, and the I thinks I am the same one who is knowing everything. And this is what we are caught up in, and therefore the uh, sadhana is to slow the mind down, slow the mind down, slow the mind down through sadhana, through meditation, through pranayam, through contemplation, through inquiry. And because the mind slows down, you are able to go to sleep also. Because the mind is slow, when you wake up, the first example that was taken up, when you wake up, at that moment, your mind has not become objectified, the self is fully available, but it has not, it is not knowing anything, but it is awake, because objects have not entered into the mind yet. But you are awake. See? So, when we are, as we said in the meditation, as we are moving around in the daily world, our disposition should be, is our mind content, is our mind quiet, is our mind at peace under all sets of circumstances. Don't agitate it. Protect it. Because the more it gets agitated, the more this alat chakra continues. The pseudo continuity, it continues. What is this imagined continuity? That is the bloody ego. There is nothing called ego otherwise. This imagined continuity is the ego. Who takes the ownership, who creates the relationships, who wants, who doesn't want. See? It's easy to understand. It's clicked. You understand it.
Not getting caught up in this.
But then again, we are caught up in our mind to work it out. But how do we? You simple statement is that you live such a life that your mind does not get disturbed. When the mind is not disturbed, automatically a new way of living will ensue. When the mind is quiet, the awareness that, because now you have come out of the gravity of this imagined illusion, you're not caught up in that when the mind is slow, has slowed down, and possibility is there of that. See? And the more you come out of that, the fast track, so to speak, of the mind, to that extent we will be with ourselves. It's not that we have never been with we have always been ourselves. But this idea that I have to realize is only because I'm caught up in this fast circular motion, thinking that I was yesterday, I was today, I am today, and I'll be tomorrow also. Oh, there is too many responsibilities. Oh my God, oh, so many things to be done. And life is becoming faster and faster nowadays, So, when these type of statements come, understand you are caught up in the circle. And it's not me or you, everyone is like that only. So, because our attention is on the world, we are caught up in this fast track of the mind. When our attention is on the self, this fast track mind automatically starts slowing down. That was the meditation today. Here, the exercise discussed is the first thought is dropped, the mind or thought is empty, therefore, the thought will have no shape and there will be no specific reflection of consciousness as Chidabhasa, nor is there a second thought yet, so a trio is not possible. In this situation, the Chidabhasa has nothing to illumine. There is nothingness. This nothingness becomes the object of knowledge. I am the seer of nothingness. Then this seerness, drashta bhav, also gets dropped. This state between the two drishtis, if maintained for long period of time, results in effortless meditation. When the drishti has lifted from one object, but it has not landed anywhere else, what is that state of suspension? There is a seer without anything to be seen. Seer without a scene is beyond the trio of seer, seen, seeing. When seeing does not result in the trio of seer, seen, seeing, that is our essential nature, then there is no seeking. This pure consciousness is all the time with us if we do not get entangled and preoccupied with the trio. Another word for trio is, another word for the triad is, another word for Triputi is, you're thinking big words. It's a very simple answer. Thought. Correct? Triputi is a thought. That is what it is. When these three come about, the subject, object and the instrument of knowledge, a thought is created. Without these three, a thought cannot come about, isn't it?
What happens?
Nothing happens.
After nothingness.
Nothing happens. Then you are. What happens after a wave has died? Has anything created? Why was wave not recognizing that it is water? Because its attention was on its form. Then while it was a wave, its attention was on the water as the wave, and it was calling itself, I am a living person, I got a life, I got a span of life to cover. I have to protect myself, I have to make sure my life as a wave is healthy, and my life, I must not interact with too many other waves, otherwise I'll get influenced by them. I don't want to go towards the beach, otherwise I'll die. I must realize before I reach. Or while in the water, I must know myself. It knows itself as a individual. It knows itself only through thoughts. It doesn't know itself as as it is. So we are a wave. How do we know ourselves? Do we know ourselves as we are?
Body.
Or do we know ourselves as, I am this body, I was born on this particular date, this is my father, this is my mother, this is my profession, this is my wife, this is my children. At this moment I am doing this, blah, blah, giving lecture, etc. All this is identification. Our attention is not on the essence. Our attention is on the ephemeral. Our attention is on that which is not. Therefore, the thoughts come about. And as we, and that is how the phenomena is functioning. You cannot do anything about it because you nothing to feel bad about it. This is how it is. But now you have come to the satsang, you have come to, and why you have come to the satsang? Because somewhere deep inside you are wanting to know what your essential nature is. And when you come here, you already that which you are seeking. Oh, I am already that. Yes. So all these examples which were given, wave is already water, crease is already cloth, ornament is already gold, thought is already consciousness. Oh, but how? Oh, silly. But how? Oh, just like the, 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 the daughter in you is already the woman. Yeah, I understand that. The wife in you is already the woman. I understand that. The sister in you is already the woman. Yeah, I understand that. The thought in you is already the consciousness. I don't understand that. I don't understand that. It requires a subtle perception. This, the thought is nothing but consciousness. It can be only appreciated at the individual level. At the intellectual level, it can only be appreciated. But to realize it, you have to go beyond it. Because thought cannot realize the self. So we are talking at the thought level, isn't it? And thought can never realize the truth. So get the idea that is being expressed, that thought is essentially consciousness. And as long as you are thinking about the thought, very difficult to go beyond thought. So here, these three exercises that are given, it is showing you the window through which you can be the conscious, not enter into conscious. You can say enter. If you apply the mind, like Ramana Maharishi says, prana bandhanat liyate manaha. At the juncture of the two breaths, apply your mind. You will vanish. The mind will vanish, self will reveal. So here also, between the two waves, water is. When your mind, it's in a habit of taking this object, that object. So when it is moving from one object to the other, don't take on to another object. What happens? So when you are sitting in meditation, you are doing this, you are thinking one thought about this thought, about that thought, and don't allow it to take the next thought. What will happen? Or there is nothing in the mind. Remain in that space. So now, instead of thinking about a thought, it is thinking there is no thought. There is no object in my mind. And you stay there, stay there. So what is your consciousness aware of now? What are you aware of? Nothing. Stay there. Don't go to sleep, because the natural inclination is to go to sleep. Stay there, stay there, stay there. Eventually the idea will come, why am I looking at it? Nothing. That thought will not come, but if you remain awake and not go to sleep while you are watching, when that objective thought has gone away and emptiness has appeared, void has appeared, immediately you will fall back. A certain, the impact of the thoughts has to reduce first. Otherwise, what happens to us? The moment we enter into that empty space where there is nothing, immediately fill up with another object about something. It could be, again emptiness has come. No, I want to think about the self. No, I don't want to think about the emptiness. This is how we keep sabotaging. So remain in that emptiness without initiating a thought. You will fall back into yourself. The self, the awarer, it will fall back into itself. And this is the example that was taken. And this way, now, so the pure consciousness is all the time with us, if only we do not get entangled and preoccupied with the trio, meaning don't get entangled and preoccupied with the thoughts. Even in meditation, we are getting caught up in the thoughts. Thoughts is Prakriti. Thoughts is the trio. Thoughts is something which is coming and going. Our attention, as long as it is on something which is coming and going, that thought cannot reveal the truth. We have to go beyond it. So when we are told, put your attention on the mind, we put attention on the thoughts. Mind is the substratum. Where is the thought coming from? Where is the thought merging back into? Put attention there, you are there. You are already there, even if you don't do it, but you don't know how to be that. And these are exercises so that it becomes, you have the direct experience comes about. The fourth exercise is taken up. कामावळो सरला दिवो रात्रीचा न करी प्रसवो तेणे गगने का भावो वाखळिला. Vakhणीला. This state of yoga bhumika is described as the sky that is perceived when the day has ended and the night is not yet born. Nobody can come to know that, now I am realized. Nobody, because when realization takes place, mind vanishes. And that point where this revelation, this eureka, this happens, that is the yoga bhumika. And for quite a few verses, the teacher has been bringing this point. This is the yoga bhumika. This is the yoga bhumika. Remember the verse, when the eyes are open, the world vanishes. When the eyes are closed, the world appears. And there it was with reference to the third eye. The eye of wisdom, when it opens, the world vanishes. When the eye of wisdom closes, the world appears. This was the yoga bhumika. All these examples that are taken, it leads to you that point where the yoga is possible. Bhumi is the ground. So where do you practice the yoga? On what grounds do you practice the yoga? In matter of speaking, it is not in the thought. In that ground between the two thoughts, in that ground when you put your attention between the two waves. Now yet another point of reference is given, or point of contemplation is given. When the day has ended and the night is not yet born, at that moment the sky, the space, supports both the light and darkness. So it is both day and night, or it is neither. So it is called sandhi. The sandhya time, whether in the morning or in the evening, is important. At that time, one is beyond the influence of day and night. In the morning sandhya, we are beyond the influence of night, ignorance, and the waking state, knowledge. This junction is the beginning and end of every duality. This is the time when consciousness becomes evident. That is why it is the custom to light the lamp at Sandhya time. Bhagwan Shankaracharya describes the junction as Laya Vikshepayo Sandhau Manaha Tatra Niramisham. The Sandhi is that where the mind is sleeping as well as awake. The mind is without content, but it is not sleeping. He who is established in that Sandhi, he is liberated and none else. This is also Shambhavi Mudra people practice. This is the beginning of it. You sit in meditation, but don't close your eyes completely. Keep them half open and look at the back of your eyelids. What do you see? Do it now. What do you see? Don't close them completely. Leave them a little bit open. Put attention on the back of the eyelids. What do you see? Nothing. But at the same time, you know there is light coming from the gap between the two eyelids, isn't it? Upper and lower. So little bit things of the outside are seen, and you are aware that that some light is coming, some objects are there, and at the same time you are aware of the emptiness also, isn't it? So this is another practice that is given. This is another practice that is given, that you don't give importance to the light or the objects because of your half open eyes, and you don't give importance to the emptiness also. If you maintain this disposition for a certain period of time, for a long period of time, what will happen? You will realize you are other than both. You are the one who is illuminating the emptiness, and you are the one who is illuminating the light. See? So where is your attention now? Acha, I am that one. Immediately you fall back into yourself. This is exactly what is taking place between the breaths, between the thoughts, between the mantras, and here in this example, when the day and the night, the juncture of the day and the night, in the morning and in the evening. Yet another example is taken, the fifth exercise. Ghetala shwasa budala घापता नाही उठिला तैसा दोहिसी सिंबतला नवे जो अर्थ. The inhaled air is absorbed and the exhalation of air has not yet begun. This state of air or prana is the yoga bhumika. So what is this yoga bhumika? Another word for this is kumbhaka. It can be antar kumbhak or bahir kumbhak. So you can breathe out and don't initiate the breathing in, and where you have stopped, in and out has stopped. You are in a neutral state. You can breathe in, and now you are not breathing in has stopped. It will end somewhere where you cannot breathe anymore inside within. And you have not started the breathing out. You are in the antar kumbhak. You are in the neutral state. These are all the examples are taking you to the state of neutrality of your mind. The moment mind becomes neutral, it is consciousness. It is because there is no movement there. Movement is only possible where you are in a first gear, forward going gears, or reverse gear. Past or future, there is movement. In the present, there is no movement. See? Or the inhaled air is absorbed and the expulsion of air has not yet begun. There is no more modifications of air happening at the point of junction in the form of prana, apana, vyana, udana and samana. This thought is seen in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 5 verse 27 when Krishna Bhagavan says, keep the sense organs away from the sense objects, keep drishti in the center of the eyebrows, that is single pointed, not being deflected from one point to the other. And this is, you can sit on the seat of meditation like today we were sitting, you can bring this about. You can bring this about. When you are absolutely alert, it will happen. This is dharana abhyasa, where the mind is held under control with reference to the parameter called place, desha. There are three parameters for the control of the mind. What are they? Place, time and object. With the place, it's dharana. With the time, it is dhyan. and with the object it is samadhi. These are the three parameters. All these three parameters, these are the final three parameters to be gone beyond after having practiced pratyahar, pranayam, yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahar. So when the pratyahar is a state where the mind is not leaking out of the senses of its own accord, it is happy where it is. Now this mind, it's not kept in a dull state. It is applied to a contemplation on something with regards to place. So either the third eye or the Vishuddhi Chakra or the heart. So every time mind goes here and there, you bring it back, you bring it back, you bring it back, you bring it back, you bring it back. And as this point of contemplation with a mantra or whatever, it becomes continuous. So if you are able to bring the mind back, mind stays with the theme for 2 minutes and then it gets disturbed. So you got 2 minutes of dhyana, but in the general sense, you are still in dharana stage because it's getting distracted after 2 minutes. Every 2 minutes, it's getting distracted. So you got dhyan, you are in meditation for 2 minutes, but if you take the total sequence, total period that you are sitting, you are only in the stage of dharana because 2 minutes of dhyan and then there is a distraction. Again 2 minutes of dhyan, again there is distraction. And what is that dhyan? I'm just giving you in that sense. But after some time, that 2 minutes will become 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, half an hour, and you lose the sense of time. Now, after half an hour, you might bring your mind back again if it gets distracted. But now, for half an hour, you are with the theme that you are contemplating upon, without any distraction. So, dhyan is what? The ability of the mind to contemplate on one particular idea, one particular thought, one particular theme, one particular species of thought to the exclusion of all other thoughts for a long period of time. See? That is dhyan. So in dhyan, the object of contemplation is still there. What is the object of contemplation? Whatever the thought. It could be the mantra. You're chanting Om. We chant Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, mind goes here and there. But if we are able to stay with Om Namah Shivaya without any distractions for 15-20 minutes, half an hour, we will feel one with it. But samadhi, Savikalpa Samadhi has taken place, but Nirvikalpa Samadhi has not taken place. For Nirvikalpa Samadhi to take place, the objectification of the mantra called Om Namah Shivaya must also be transcended. So dharana is with regards to space or desha. Dhyan is with regards to kala, time, and samadhi is with regards to vastu, object. Desha, kala, vastu. There are three parameters for the control of the mind with reference to place, time and object, desh, kala, vastu. When these three parameters operate together, it is called sanyama. So, what is this sanyama? Samyama or sanyama? Sanyama is the ability to focus on something. This is how Ayurveda, Dhanurveda, astrology को क्या बोलते हैं? It's on my tip of my tongue. Ayurveda is study of knowledge. Study of constellations and stars is what called what? Jyotish. Okay. No, there is another word for it. Anyway, so whatever it is, how did they come? They did not calculate. They did not travel to India, to the sun or the moon. They did not have the instruments to do the experiments on the herbs and the various things. They did sanyama. They kept the herb in their mind, focused, took control of the times, place, and object. Object is there, and time and place has been transcended. The object reveals itself. So here, if I want to calculate the distance between Melbourne, from Earth to Sun, my attention is not on the Sun. My attention is on the distance between the Sun. I keep that thought and I do not allow my mind to get distracted by anything else. I stay with that thought. I stay with that thought without any disturbance. The distance will reveal itself. I can do this. We can do the same thing with people also. You keep a particular thought in your mind without getting distracted at a particular point, focus somewhere. The person will reveal. You will come to know everything about that person. And you have come across so many Mahatmas who can tell you. You go there, they tell you everything about you. How is that possible? This is how it is possible. Sanyama. This is how discoveries were made. This is how inventions came about. Einstein did a sanyama. He had an idea, but he could not prove it. But he had an idea. And what was the idea? That energy is equal to mass into acceleration. In other words, when mass is destroyed, nothing is lost. When mass is destroyed, when we say this table is broken, arey yaar, table is broken. If water is evaporated, arey yaar, water is gone, now what will we drink? But his idea was that when something gets destroyed, nothing is lost. It is there in some other form. When ice is destroyed, water remains. When water is destroyed, water vapor remains. Isn't it? So for so many years of his life, he did a sanyam. He was at it. Eventually, it revealed. What is the equation behind it? What is the theory behind it? How he can present it to other people? How can he prove it? It got revealed to him. See? Exactly the same way, all these sadhanas that we are seeing here, they have been revealed to the masters because they have done sanyama. That sanyama automatically happens when you are on the journey to dharana, dhyan, samadhi. Somewhere, something will catch imagination of your mind and you want to know it. If you get distracted or you go into the meditation with an intention, I want to know what this is, what other sadhanas are possible, then they will reveal themselves to you. So here, when these three parameters operate together, it is called sanyama. So here Bhagavan Krishna refers to the mind's control with reference to object, sparsha, and to place, chakshusha, cha eva antare bhruvo. When these two things happen, then the third parameter of time follows. The prana and apana get equalized. The respiration becomes slow and shallow. The result is total absence of thoughts with reference to place, time, and object. The mind is conquered with the reference to these three parameters. As slowly sanyama takes place and you go beyond the trap of time, you go beyond, the mind starts going beyond time and beyond place and time. See, what does sanyama mean? What are the three parameters? Time, place, time, and objectivity. So what is the object? Suppose example is, object is this camera. What is time, space? I keep it in focus. in my mind. I want to know about it. I keep it in my mind. Camera. Where if I keep it in my mind keeps going here and there. So I fix it somewhere. I fix my attention here and keep thinking of camera. I keep attention here and keep thinking of camera. I keep thinking of the heart and I keep the thought camera there. So I have locked it into a place. I have locked it into a place. Now, so space, with regards to space, I have locked it into position. Now, time is left. What is that? So, when I am thinking of camera, my mind is going here and there. But if I am thinking about, I have locked it into a particular spot in myself, and I am able to think about it without getting distracted for, say, half an hour. For that half an hour, I am not under the influence of time. I have conquered time. So the object is in my mind, the place, I have conquered the space because I locked it in one place. I'm not getting distracted from it. And I have transcended time for that half an hour because time is not able to influence me. Otherwise, this is what happens to us. We start, अरे यार कितने दिन में कितना मिनट हो गया, कितना हो गया, and we get distracted. Body starts aching, different things come, pressure comes, thirst comes. And when this happens, when this integration takes place on a particular object, when you are sitting in meditation, you will notice, you must be noticing here, many times there is no breath. Many times there is no breath. Why? You are in that kumbhak. Why? Because the in-breath and the out-breath have become equal. Why? Because the inside and the outside have become balanced. Why? The Ida and the Pingla have become balanced. The Sushumna has started. These are just different ways of explaining the same thing. The yin and yang, they have become balanced. Then meditation is possible. So here,
Swamiji, when we hear that throb, is that the balancing stage or beyond that?
yes, continue. It will take you wherever it has to take you. But more important than hearing the throb,
Because that happens right in the beginning.
yes, what happens? See, you have got that. If you are listening to throb. Now, instead of listening to the words, instead of listening to the thoughts, instead of listening to so many different themes, all the themes have merged into that one throb. So, throb is also a thought at the moment for you because you are experiencing it. So, it becomes a focus. It becomes a focal point. At least your mind is not traveling around in the world, it is absolutely focused. Now, tie it down to a place, lock it into a place, or allow it to unfold itself. Whichever way, both ways is okay. But it must lead to one conclusion. And what is that? This throb is a thought, that I am aware of this throb. Is this throb more important, or the one who knows this thought is more important?
It stops after some time.
If it stops at that time, breathing will become almost equal. Body will become absolutely still. It will almost become rock-like. Remain there, remain there, remain there. And access that disposition many times a day. Try to get there as many times, 2-3 times at least. Then slowly, it will start washing your whole mind. The whole objectivity will start going away because you are in that neutral state. Because in that neutral state alone, the truth can reveal itself. The mind will be washed with the truth. It's washed all the time, but you will directly experience it without a thought in that neutral state where you are neither here nor there. You are neither awake nor asleep. You are neither breathing in nor breathing out. You are neither thinking or not thinking. See? So it's good if you got that, make that as a, take that and run with it. Don't put connotations to it. Oh, this throb is there. I think it's the energy. I think my kundalini is starting. If then unwanted, then when we are thinking like this, then we are not thinking about the throb. Allow it to. What it is doing is it is purifying. The more we are concentrated, to directly proportional to that is our purification, depending upon what the theme of concentration is. The more focused the mind is, the more expanded the mind is. We think we are intelligent, thinking about the whole world. I have got a large vision. Bekoof. The more you think about many things, that much you are concretized as personality. The more you are focused, the more is the expansion. So the prana and apana get equalized, the respiration becomes slow and shallow. The result is total absence of thought with reference to place, time, and the object. The mind is conquered with reference to these three parameters. This is what this OV conveys. The inhaled air has been fully absorbed. Exhalation has not yet taken place. The body is still. Respiration and pulsation in every cell is minimal, like that of a hibernating animal. The air in the body at this point can be classified as neither prana nor apana. This undifferentiated air is equivalent to undifferentiated consciousness. How beautiful! This kumbhak means what? Where there is no in-breath and no out-breath. What is mind? Where the pure consciousness has become the I thought and the that thought. Differentiation has begun. So when we are going into the kumbhak, between the two breaths, between the two thoughts, these two are going back into their source. All you have to do is access that neutral point of that is being indicated. And it is present with us every time, all the time. How many times you think in the day? Between two thoughts it's available. How many times do you breathe in the day? Between two breaths it's available all the time. But are we applying ourselves? That is the question. So, do small doses of meditation, contemplation many times during the day and access that. Access yourself. Be yourself. This undifferentiated air is equivalent to undifferentiated consciousness, where the knower-known knowledge differentiation has not taken place. How one has arrived at this point develops universal vision. Sarvatma Bhav, which transcends individual experiences, is stated in an unparalleled way that if one were to experience all the sense objects by all the senses simultaneously, it would be an experience of self-realization. See? So either we come within and allow the vision to be presented, or if we have the capacity, if we have, very difficult, but with the open eye, you keep putting your attention. How would the Ishvara be seeing the whole world with all the eyes? How is that possible? Suddenly you will fall back into yourself. So these are windows of opportunity where our mind is neutralized of its opposites, of the contradictions, of the I and the that, Ida and the Pingla, Prana and Apana, etc., etc. And as a result of accessing these points of a juncture, we fall back into ourselves, or in other words, the self that we essentially are reveals itself abundantly. It is always available, but we become one with it. We are able to recognize it without a thought. We are able to directly experience it without a thought. The state in our scriptures is given as aparoksha anubhuti, direct experience. Parokshata is indirect. Aparoksha is direct. There is no medium required. Normally, to know something, seeing, hearing, touching, feeling, tasting is a medium. Thinking is a medium. Emotion is a medium. Concept is a medium. In other words, thought is a medium to know. But in aparoksha anubhuti, in a direct experience of our own self, there is no medium, there is no means employed in order to know, because we are already that which we are seeking. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.